Pennsylvania middle school assignment suggests Donald Trump takes over the country by force. Nonsense. We all know that's the ambition of woke middle school teachers in public school classrooms. I'm Dr. Duke, and this is the Dr. Duke Show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dr. Duke Show, the only program that keeps you educated on the craziness impacting K-12 classrooms and college campuses all around the world. Katie is off again today. She's in New Zealand at a Hobbit reunion. Hope to have her back soon. Today, we're discussing a proposal by Democrat presidential contender to extend the school day to 10 hours. Thank you, Arnie Duncan. Latest research shows that we have an educational crisis in this country, but does anybody care? But we start in Pennsylvania, where a middle school teacher told her students to photograph themselves packing a bag to pretend they are refugees forced to leave their homes, thanks to Donald Trump. Before we get started, I want to take a quick moment. After nearly 2 years, the Dr. Duke Show is very excited to welcome daily sponsors. If you have a business, large or small, we'd love to partner with you. To get started, visit freedomproject.com/advertise, freedomproject.com/advertise, and let us support your business. It could be an interesting relationship. And this brings us to our first story. Teacher homework, Trump taking over the country. A teacher at a Pennsylvania middle school issued a homework assignment in which students were instructed to photograph themselves literally packing a bag and pretending they were refugees. This reminds me of a few years ago, 10 years ago, when they were actually taking kids in the classroom and segregating them black and white and making the white kids pretend to be slaves and the black kids pretend to be slave owners. This is the level of thinking at your modern public school. A middle school teacher has assigned this because President Donald Trump is trying to take control of the United States. There are fights in the streets. The homework assignment at the middle school in the Penn Cambria School District in Gallitzin, Pennsylvania, reportedly upset parents. You think? Penn Live reported, quote, District Superintendent William Marshall says the teacher realized the huge error and has called each parent individually to apologize. They can't handle this. You're sending the kids home to pack a bag and take a picture to psychologically go through the process of having to flee as a refugee. What is the purpose of this other than to drum up emotional and non-intellectual sympathy for refugees, number one, and number two, to malign the president? That's a twofer in any public school. But here's what the assignment actually said. President Trump is trying to take control of the U.S. There are fights in the streets. You have a lot of exclamation points here. You have to pretend that you are a refugee being forced to leave your home, never to return. Please have a parent time them for 10 minutes when they pack the bag. So the stupidity of this, you've got to go get your mom and dad to be the cameraman for you packing as a refugee. When the time was up, they were told to take a picture of the contents of their backpack and then email it to the teacher. You'll have to justify with me, your teacher, why you chose those items. Would it have been hysterical if one kid had nothing more than a bag of MAGA hats? This assignment's due on Thursday. It's worth 10 points. 10 points, 10 stinking points is all you get for all this work. Well, the teacher's in trouble. She's being disciplined by the school. She claimed that she downloaded the quiz from Quizlet and had not reviewed the questions before making it part of the quiz. The real tragedy here is this is how you prepare for class. You download something from a big educational corporation and you don't bother to read it, you just incorporate it. Good thing we're paying those teachers more. Hey, walk out, red for ed, right? Let's give them more money because clearly they're spending a lot of time on classroom preparation. And another one of those things that we have warned you about. I keep touting my 10-year history as a Common Core advocate because, we lost every battle. Common Core is all over the place. It's been rebranded. All the textbook companies have gone over. All the testing is in place. 1,000 talks in 48 states, and we've more or less won none of them. I mean, the one thing that all of this talking did do was get a bunch of moms and dads to pull their kids out of public schools. And for that, I am grateful. And maybe we can continue to do it. But this is something we also predicted was going to happen. That Arnie Duncan said, Barack Obama's Secretary of Education, in his first 3 months on the job, that maybe we ought to have the schools open, the public schools open 10, 12, 14 hours a day. Maybe we need to have the schools open 365 days a year because really, according to Duncan, the public school is the center of the community, he said.
I think our schools should be open 12, 13, 14 hours a day. So it's not just lengthening.
So 8 to 8 or something like that?
Yes, and let me tell you what, not just lengthening obviously the school day, but a wide variety of after-school activities: drama, arts, sports, chess, debate, academic enrichment, programs for parents, GED, ESL, family literacy nights, potluck dinners. At home, we attached healthcare clinics to about 24 of our schools. Where schools truly become the centers of the community, great things happen.
The vision of these globalist technocrats was to make this network of government public schools into the actual centers of communities. And now along comes Kamala Harris, Heels Up Harris, who has her campaign is cratering, and so what is her argument? Let's open our schools 10 hours a day. Let's open them from the hours of 3 to 5. Let's keep your kids in school, and this way we'll allow 2 more hours of quote-unquote free babysitting until mom and dad get off work. And then you know what's going to happen. The minute you do that, you extend it to 5 or 6, then mandatory dinner has to be paid for, right? It's endless with these people. This has nothing to do with educating your kids. It has nothing to do with helping families. This is one of the problems of public schools. It's not even the educational system, which is corrupt and rotten and a failure. It's the idea that for many parents, that for 6 to 8 hours a day, this is free babysitting. Kamala Harris has introduced a bill that aims to help working parents by aligning school hours with the normal workday. Right now, most schools dismiss around 3 p.m., 2 hours short of the usual standard full-time workday, leaving many parents in a bind. And the minute you pass this, it's going to be deemed racist, because many African-American minority moms and dads have to teach second shift. All the white guys have got all the first shift to white privilege. What about all these minorities? What about all the immigrants who are teaching second and third shift, right? Who are working second and third shift. Before you know it, you're going to have what Arne Duncan also called for. You're going to have federal boarding schools.
We have these great physical resources, and we need to maximize
So keep them open 12 hours a day, 12 months a year.
Yes.
12 hours a day, 12 months a year.
And I would go to 6 or 7 days a week, not just Monday through Friday.
Why don't we just take them all the time, keep them till 6 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 10 o'clock, federally board them? This is unbelievable, but it's not surprising. This legislation is called, quote, Family Friendly Schools Act, right? So we're going to take more of your kids away from us, more of their time, more of their effort, more of the responsibility of being a parent. We'll take more of it away from you, Mom, and we'll call it family friendly. This would create school activities at least between 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. Harris introduced the bill. However, the bill doesn't aim to make teachers work longer. No. We'll open the schools longer, but we won't put the burden on teachers. Instead, the law would award grants up to $5 million to schools, more taxpayer money, so that the schools can develop programs to keep kids busy. Already, they're doing nothing but busy work. This is a great idea if you are a globalist socialist who doesn't like parents. And that seems to be where our public schools are today. And our final story today, just glad to see somebody do it. A good friend of ours, Sheriff David Clark, you may remember him as the America's Sheriff, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, African-American and very, very savvy in pointing out how the left-wing plantation actually doesn't do African-Americans any favors. Wrote a really good article here called "There's an Educational Crisis. Does anybody care?" What a story, right? And we've said this too, it's not new, but it's somebody of David Clark's stature, and his background as a law enforcement agent. He saw the consequences in Milwaukee, inner city Milwaukee, of kids who were not being educated, black and brown-skinned kids who were being cheated of an education by a rampantly failed public school system. How many of those kids ended up in Sheriff Clark's prisons? He writes, "In my home state of Wisconsin, state-mandated test scores were just as dreadful, showing that fewer than half of Wisconsin students are scoring high enough on state tests to be actually considered proficient in math and reading. The achievement gap between white and black students in Wisconsin continues to widen as well. All of this is occurring while education spending in Wisconsin goes way up, and we've got one of the worst governors with regards to education any state in the union's ever had now. Tony Evers, the skeleton on a stick, who has actually brought Common Core to this state 10 years ago. The education," Sheriff Clark says, "is so bad, so horrendous in places like Detroit, that a former public high school graduate actually had to sue his previously attended district for failing to educate him." So what a great idea this is. A kid who got a crappy inner city Detroit education, who was not taught how to read and write, actually sued the system. He called attending high school a big waste of time. He recalled that in his 11th and 12th grade English classes, that students were given material to learn that was marked for 3rd and 4th graders. I've mentioned to you many times that my college, at my university, my freshmen incoming university students have about a 8th grade, 9th grade reading level. They're 4 or 5 years behind. In Detroit, high school kids were reading 3rd and 4th grade material. Long-term substitute teachers failed to teach. They showed movies instead. The lawsuit included an 8th grader who, after his teacher quit, was forced to teach math to his classmates for a month. A little kid who had to teach other students. Stories like this describe most large urban school districts in this country, attended particularly by black and brown students across America. And according to David Clark, sadly, there is no uproar, and there isn't. And perhaps one of the biggest lies of public school is a monstrosity built on an endless series of lies. One of the big ones is the reason we're not educating your kids is we don't have enough money. You look at the graphs, right? Since 1970, what we pay has gone way up to the schools, and what the achievement is dwindles. But perhaps the single biggest lie of public schools, all this progressive education, all this left-wing ideology, all this social justice garbage in the public schools, the biggest lie is that we're actually helping minority kids. We are not. We are driving the wedge deeper between black and brown skinned babies and white ones. We're destroying inner city education. One of the ways, and Sheriff Clark pointed this out years ago, Barack Obama's disparate discipline impact program, right? Obama's argument that black kids get in trouble more than white kids do in the school. So therefore, let's not have discipline in the schools, and especially let's not discipline minority kids for the sake of equity. And when you think about how rough and tumble many of these inner city schools are, how often moms and dads are not in the home in these inner city schools, to take discipline away in the name of some weird equity system is to damn those schools to greater failure. Thank you, Barack Obama, Barack Obama, had your kids safely in a nice, private, Sidwell Friends boarding school, right? Eating thousands of calories for lunch while your wife was out there starving to death American school children. This is what you do. You starve to death America's school children. You make the gap between white and black students worse. You refuse to allow teachers in schools to discipline minority students. And then you say the whole problem belongs to money. Sheriff Clark, I salute you. Thank you for this article. It's nothing that we haven't said before, but hopefully somebody of your stature and your bona fides, maybe people will listen. And that'll do it. If you like the show, please consider supporting it by signing up for the Patriot Club. Just $25 a month keeps us going. And right now, we'll ship you this limited, handsome edition tumbler with my name on it. It's handsome like me, and a stress ball, right? So you can drink hard liquor every time we give you a public school story, get yourself good and buzzed, and you can squeeze off all the stress that comes with it. It's a win-win-win. All you got to do is visit drdukeshow.com to get started. And don't forget, if you have a business, large or small, we'd like to help you reach more people with a sponsorship. Just visit FreedomProject.com and let us know you're interested. For Freedom Project, I'm Dr. Duke. Until next time, stay educated, my friends.